the Market Musings podcast with Fairbairn and Russell. Hello and welcome to the Market Musings podcast, where today we're going to be talking oil, which is not something that we have really spoken about before on the Market Musings podcast. But our guest today is very welcome, Pierpaolo Rocco, who is the managing director of BritNRG, which is part of the Metal NRG group. Pierpaolo, how are you? Good to have you on.
Good afternoon, Mark. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. It's good to have you on. And of course, we have Kenny joining us as well.
Hi, Pierpaolo. I didn't actually realise that you were in Scotland as well, so I think it's actually the first time we've ever had anyone from Scotland out with Alan. What's the guy's name, Mark?
Alan Steele. Alan Steele from
Yep. So you're the second Scottish guest. So welcome on the podcast.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yep, I'm glad to be here.
Yep. And you're in the oil capital of Scotland, Aberdeen, of course.
Yep, sunny Aberdeen. Not too sunny today.
Sunny Aberdeen. Yeah, it's pretty miserable in the west, but that's the normal for us. It's dry and cold in the east and mild and wet in the west. But no, it's great to have you on the podcast. And what we like to do, Pierpaolo, is we believe that people invest in people, and we like to find out a bit about the directors behind the company. So really, it's an opportunity for you to tell us a bit about yourself and go back as far as you want. You can go back to your childhood, where you were born, where you were brought up, education, how you get into the oil and gas industry, because it looks like you've spent most of your working career in the oil and gas industry. So it's really, the floor's really yours to tell us a bit about yourself. So it's 10-15 minutes of Pierpaolo, and we'll come in when appropriate with comments.
Absolutely splendid. Thank you for this. I understand this, and I understand the point of what you guys are doing. So a bit about me. I'll spare you all the details. But I've come from southern Italy, originally from Naples, but I lived majority of my youth in a small region nearby. You probably wouldn't know the name. It's called Molise. I studied in Naples after my secondary school. I studied at the Naples University, an old-fashioned degrees, which is sort of equivalent to an MN at the moment these days. So and as a naval architect, I keep repeating to everybody, I'm an engineer by background, first and foremost an engineer. So my career back there was a pretty long degree. It was 5 years plus for studies. And with some experimental research and all these lovely things, I turned out to be one of the few in Italy to specialize in, strange enough, shore structures. And at the time, I'm talking about late 90s, it was 96, 97, by the way, and it was a very fashionable subject in the oil and gas, of course. So my first few years in professional years, I was working the shipping and shipbuilding industry. So I started as a party consultant for small consulting companies in Naples, working on insurance claims and things like that, which was a great experience because I understand what sort of background I gained out of, what sort of experience I gained out of that. Then I moved into the shipbuilding in northern Italy, in Trieste, a lovely town northeast of Italy. I didn't stay there for long. I was thinking about settling in. I bought a little flat and the like, but then, interestingly, an oil and gas service company called Saipem, called me. They got the name from university because, like I said, there were very few that did that sort of studies at the time. And straight away over the phone, I was offered a job in London. To work in their branch that was building, large structures, building and installing large structures and pipelines and subsea infrastructure in the North Sea. So late 90s, I ended up in London. It was my first abroad experience. I can say one of the very few times I've been abroad by that. So it was pretty interesting. I did a couple of years there. It changed a lot my perspective. Then I came back to Milan when I same company. was building a department of naval architects. We were focusing on marine operations and oil and gas installations in all sort of environment, particularly of course, the North Sea harsh environment, but also the much milder West African ones. And of course, we started talking about deep water. The first project in deep water, was really, that time, late 90s, we see the first deep water installation worldwide, and Saipem was very much at the lead of that market at the time. And I stayed there, probably they still are, I'm not sure now. So yeah, that's how I ended up in the oil and gas industry. So it was not really in the plan. Anyway, since then, here I am. So it's been a few years now, and after UK, I ended up in Paris. I've done quite a few years in Africa, in the Middle East, in the Russia area. Yeah, I've done quite a lot of it. So I came back in 2012 in the UK and into the North Sea. And ever since in Aberdeen, with a small parenthesis in London. So yeah, that's where I am now. So I worked, in the last few years, I've been working on a number of, I moved from the offshore, which was my natural environment as a naval architect, to the onshore oil and gas world. And I turned a lot more into, from a construction guy, more into, a bit of a hands-on oil manager, if you allow me to say that. So I developed a bit of a wider view on oil and gas installation of sort of done, quite a few onshore projects in the last few years, and mostly in Europe, but not only that. And so a year and a half ago, I met with Rolf and Rolf Gerritsen, the CEO of BritNRG, and we said, well, let's see if there's perhaps we could pursue a future together. So he's playing with the plan. And I thought what he was doing was a good idea, and I said, I think I can fit in that. And here we are today. So it's been, like I said, about 18 months now, just shy of that. Mm-hmm. Been very intense. We've been extremely busy. We looked into a number of, but we put together, I think it's a pretty sound and solid plan. We worked a lot on the strategy. And he listened to my point of view quite openly, and I think I listened to him as well. So it turned out to be a quite clear path. What we wanted to do was pretty straightforward. The strategies sound. We need to the opportunities seem to be there. The market was there. Then of course COVID happened. And as ever, you have to adapt and find opportunities even when things don't go the way you want it to be. I think we have managed to balance the issues, and most importantly, I think we've also managed to capitalize some of the relevant opportunities without being cynical. But it's been tough for everybody, and how tough it's been for the oil and gas. It's been. I think out of all the industries, the oil and gas, allow me to say, that's been the most hit to be. Probably remember when a year ago the oil, the WTI was ended up sub-zero, and at some point, if I remember well, it was even something like minus $35 per barrel. So it's been paradoxical, if you allow me. It's been atrocious. So very, very tough. The oil and gas is a very resilient industry. So we are used to volatility. We're used to major crises, and we're used to rallies as well. So it's essential that you put yourself in a position to position yourself to capture all these potential upsides. And I think we've done quite well.
Okay.
So far.
Yep. We'll come on to BritNRG in a few minutes, Pierpaolo, but it'd be good. I mean, you said you've been all over, Middle East, Russia, Africa. You must have a few stories or a few adventures in some of these places. Any standout moments from your career, or not successes or any major achievements in some of these projects, or maybe in harsh conditions or operating conditions that were were not similar to what you would expect in the North Sea?
Thank you for asking. We say what happens in Africa stays in Africa, and the same applies to Russia. Other than that, I said Russia. Mostly, I work in Russia, of course, but mostly I work in Kazakhstan, which is an interesting country with gigantic oil and gas reserves. And same in Africa, we're talking about the degrees of magnitude. To be honest with you, I think I've covered very much all the West African areas. I had the luck to be involved into the most, I believe, at least at the time, the most challenging projects that the oil and gas can meet, and every sort. In the late 90s, early 2000s, I was involved in deep water, ultra deep water projects, which were at the edge of way beyond actually the technology limits at the time. So there were very few. So imagine the risks and the level of investments that involved in this kind of projects. Obviously, they were highly rewarding prospects for the operators, but there was a size that even the oil industry they hadn't seen before, and the risks were absolutely outrageous. So I've done a few of those, and yes, and to be honest with you, the track record that we and the company I was working with at the time, which I mentioned already too many times so far, was pretty solid, and honestly, it was a time when up to 2006-07, I was working on these sort of projects, and you could see oil company, going up and down, and particularly contractors were actually going bankrupt quite regularly for the inability to understand, allocate, and capitalize on and manage the risk. So it was a very interesting moment of this industry, and we did quite well. I was part of a very good task force at the time based in Paris, and we were doing particularly well in this area. We were taking projects, and we were making this project profitable. They gave me an attitude, a can-do attitude that I think I retained. After that, I was working in the largest offshore development ever. Actually, the largest project ever in Kazakhstan. At the time, the budget was, you wouldn't believe that, was $120 billion. So the famous Kashagan project, I think it was the largest oil and gas we've had ever after the, I can't recall the name one, the Saudi Arabic one. So imagine the magnitude of that project. Was a very difficult, challenging project technically, but also you can imagine all the stakeholders involved in a development like that. It was a politically difficult position, so the challenge was amazing. 3 meters of water, entirely freezing, -40 in winter, +40 in the summer, 100% humidity throughout the year, and we had at some point I think we had 5,000 people working offshore in offshore environment in a very sour reservoir with massive H2S issues, with all the the consequences the H2S can generate, and you can imagine how complex was to manage a project of that, or like that. I was involved in one of the package of this project, but we were all there. It was not a huge team given the size of the venture, and it was another terrific experience. I stayed about 3.5-4 years in that job. And so I learned it, to be honest. Ever since, after these two experiences, I've always worked on projects that demanded, all projects do, of course, demand an element of entrepreneurship and ability to deal with the unforeseen. But these really were very, I think after that, I think I've seen it all. So then I went back into deep water, I went back into the offshore. Then I started working on onshore projects, but and these were all successful ventures. So I developed, I believe, a skill to deal with difficult situations. The more recent involvement I had. I've been given projects particularly difficult, and I would say relatively compromised, and in various terms, technical and commercial. And I've always been employed by my employers in a way as the one that was was there to sort it out somehow, and I can prove a solid track record in that respect as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm somebody that all this. I do believe I have a track record of solid, measurable successes, and I can prove it. So that's my thing, and like I said, sorting things out, understanding where even when the things don't go particularly well, or even when they go terribly bad, there's also a way out, and perhaps even an opportunity. So
So we're taking this.
Yep.
Yeah, we're taking this can-do attitude over to BritNRG now. So it maybe be good, Pierpaolo, if you could give us an asset overview. I mean, I know it's based onshore in the UK, but for maybe listeners that are not familiar with the story, if you can maybe give a sort of high-level overview of the projects within the BritNRG portfolio.
Yeah, well, this came out of the idea. So we were looking for something that we say, okay, let's build a business, an oil and gas business in which BritNRG is going to be primarily involved, possibly not alone. Obviously, we were thinking we would need some support at some point. But I wanted to grow that business differently. I wanted to make it self-sufficient. So I said, look, let's not invest a fortune from this in the beginning. I've seen a few in the last 5 years when I started really doing this a little bit more intensively. I've seen a lot of companies that so-called oil energy startups that they finance themselves. They give themselves. I'm not speaking about anybody in particular, obviously, but finance themselves, give salaries to the directors, the executives, and the like, and not do much with it. So I've seen company with no assets, with really, really not interesting story, but managing to finance themselves and somehow squander, invest the money. Like I said, I'm not speaking about anybody in particular. My idea was different. I wanted to see, can I create value before financing the deal? So we really to put money into our pockets to make this happen. And obviously, because the oil and gas is one of the industry with the highest entry barriers for various reasons. Well, imagine how difficult that was. So we ended up looking for the deals that weren't particularly interesting for others, and we had to find value where nobody else could find value. So we looked around. I believe there was a way to. So I don't want to call it we were looking to distress assets, but clearly it turned into distress assets because then COVID happened, and we had pretty much, if you allow me to call it that, a distressed industry. Mm-hmm. So we found this opportunity, the sunset opportunity. The group had been on a sale for I don't know how many years. Clearly, they never managed to complete the sale. There were liabilities associated with it. There were unknowns, but it seemed to be right fitting into our strategy. So we thought, well, could this be the starting point for what we want to do? And I said, okay, let's look into this. And there's always a way forward. And we did look into it, and we found some value. Like I said, we also understood the liabilities, and the transaction period took much longer than we would have hoped, because I wouldn't have completed the transaction before having an absolute grasp on all the liabilities and obviously the risk. So we did all that. I'm not in a position to disclose more, but the company at the moment is liability and debt free. And on the positive side, I would say virtually debt-free. Of course, there is a little bit of current debt, but that's normal. We are funded for what it takes. We got absolutely what we need to now look into the business. And what we've done since we completed the transaction a couple of months ago. So the first 100 days, what we have to do, we have to completely de-risk the business, understand exactly where we are. And we've done that. We aligned all the relationship. We restarted our talks with the UK regulators, and I hope on the right footpath. So we got certified, and the main three ISO, 9001, the 14001, which is the environmental one, and the 45001 ISO, which is the occupational health and safety. And I think that's a unique thing that you wouldn't find in many other companies in our business. So we put together a really solid management system for the company. Like I keep saying, we have a very good team, we have a solid team. And yes, meanwhile, we have we try to understand better what is the keys of risk in our industry, which is, of course, the subsurface risk. So we have a good grasp on the subsurface in all our assets. And we found excellent opportunities in that respect. And we think that we could be, at this point now, we could really extract some value there.
Okay.
And the great thing is we are an oil and gas company recognized in the UK. And yes, we can now. Our degrees of freedom expand. Now we can do things. We can do more deals. Obviously, always keeping in mind, absolute control over risks, and we wouldn't want to stretch ourselves. It's always been my point to walk before we start running. So one thing at a time. I'm not absolutely here to kill it. I want to create a sustainable, solid business that we can, and our investors can rely upon for the foreseeable future. We are diversifying as well. It's not only oil and gas we're thinking about, and you've probably seen the latest one. So I think so far so good.
Okay.
Allow me to touch wood. Yeah.
I mean, just keeping an eye on BritNRG and the changes that have happened recently. Obviously, bringing in with BritNRG, and of course the new venture, if you like, in green space. It looks like a company that is definitely turning a new leaf, let's say, and putting in specific teams such as yourself to take the projects individually and move them on. And I mean, how you've clearly had, Pierpaolo, a long experience in the oil industry. How many years do you think it is?
I did in the oil industry myself.
Yeah, how many years have you been working in this industry?
Oh, well, if you, I would say, 23, 24, 25, let's say certainly more than 20.
Certainly more than 20. Okay, so that's a long time. So you have obviously a lot of experience, but you also have been through many cycles, I suppose. If mining is anything to go by in the oil sector, the cycles that things go through. So you've been through the peaks of as you approach 2010, and the huge crash back down in sort of mid-14, and a rise again, and of course the recent big drop in oil because that was caused by COVID. How do you perceive these sort of peaks and troughs and these trends? And where do you think oil tends to have a bad reputation, but it's not going anywhere for a while? Where do you see the industry heading?
I think that first of all, the oil industry should re-educate itself from internally. And I don't want to touch the discussion about, is CO2 really an issue or not? CO2 is one of the several greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, not by no means the most dangerous, it certainly is a factor. Now, blaming the oil industry for that alone is human activity for sure. And anyway, it's a long story. There's many other industries that do much worse than the oil and gas, by the way. But that said, the oil and gas should have done better from the beginning. I mean, I keep saying we never, in the several years of 40, 50 years of intensive oil and gas and exploration and production that we can count now, we really could have done better in many ways. So I think even the majors recognize that. So there's always been, it's always been an industry that's been criticized and never particularly liked. But I can confirm internally, we respected a few exceptions. The industry has a strong, background of integrity and technical value. And by the way, human activity, I should say this, so it's entirely reliant on the industry. So, we can do whatever we want, but we wouldn't be building Tesla without oil and gas.
I suppose what's key as well with the assets in BritNRG is that these have been fast-producing assets that with modern technology now, you guys are able to, to see reserves of oil that perhaps, 20, 30 years ago when these were producing, nobody knew were there. So it's an opportunity to extract oil that's always been there, but obviously technology is advancing that far nowadays that it's possible to do all these ground penetrating stuff and get a better assessment of what lies beneath.
Yeah, it's a good point, Kenny. I think, what does make a good discovery these days, Pierpaolo? Is it the modern technology that has allowed you to see perhaps what wasn't there in the past?
I think we should look at what we want, what really the objective is. If I can tell you how I see it, for me the objective is oil should be the energy. It should be sustainable, right? It's proven itself as a source of a dependable source of energy. Many other green source of energy are not as dependable, and that's why we never really, unless we come out with a proper plan, with a proper energy plan, at country level, but not only, of course. And it's not really changing much. We're not really doing much, but we're only creating trouble and add cost into the economy. And by the way, this cost is going to be the parts of our economy hit the most would be the parts that are more in need, and that also applies to developing countries. So we have to understand that oil is, to me, the first thing, oil matters if you can produce it in an environmentally sensible way, but also it's to be cheap. So I believe, of course, some would argue with me and say, well, cheap oil is not really going to give ground for alternative energies to develop, because obviously all economies will go to the cheap. But we should think, our development world, I think we should believe that we should start thinking that countries in view of development, developing countries, they have their own right to grow, if you allow me to say that. And let's bear in mind, if out of the several megatons of CO2 in the atmosphere, the vast majority of this were produced and are still produced by the developed countries. So it's a tough argument. It's a tough discussion to be had. For me, like I said, we have to look into dependable and environmentally conscious, friendly energy. So I believe the oil and gas can be done like that. I also believe in energy transition, don't get me wrong, but energy transition done properly. If I may speak for myself only, my opinion is that the vast majority of the propositions in the energy transition world are completely immaterial. So we have to think about investments has to be, in that sense, have to be sustainable. Of course, we talk about that, so let's make it really sustainable, and it has to be, feasible. It has to be economical. So if I don't see how we could ever develop energy sources which have at the moment no ground to be any of this, not sustainable, not economical. So we really should start looking at this at the energy market with a proper critical approach and be objective and look where we are. By the way, there's also a behavioral element. So we like to criticize this and that, but at the end of the day, we also switch our air conditioning on in the summer with with windows opened. So there's a lot of things that we should do at various level. I'm surprised that the governments they're not really taking this too seriously. So I'd still to date, I see a lot of, the kind of slogans around, but I haven't seen, and I'm not talking about any country in particular, but I haven't seen a serious, understandable energy strategy in place in any European country nor worldwide. So yeah, it's a tough one, but I like you say, the oil and gas is it's here. Our engagement is that we want to work really towards sustainability, and we want to do oil and gas with an absolute view on the environment. And like I say, our environmental certification is proven. So we are looking to do it in the best possible way, to be honest. And by the way, I keep saying about carbon capture. Carbon capture is not, in my opinion, has not been given the necessary attention so far. It's a technology. It exists. It's material, and by the way, even cost is not as high as you would think. So why don't we consider that? So in power generation plants, there is an opportunity, and not only, also refineries, carbon-intensive activities, even cement and the like. So there's an opportunity to capture carbon. Why don't we discuss that as well?
Yeah, good point. So the project then that BritNRG have, what's going on? What's the activities that are planned?
Well, we are. The plan was to bring, the first thing we had to do, like I said, we talked about risk management and understanding exactly what we're doing here, but then also we had to bring a bit more production. And these days we are finalizing the preparation for the workover of the Wisby well. And the latest I heard, we should be able to mobilize towards the end of next week, the coming week. So 5th to 10th of April. Okay. And that should, be very much double the production of the Wisby site.
So this is Wisby number 6. Is it a wax rework? Is it?
This is the problem with a wax blockage in it. It's a pretty standard operation, to be honest. So we don't foresee any particular issue. Well, of course, we're planning it with all the necessary precaution, with the attentions required. So I think we have it's all in hand at the moment. So next week we will start the operation. I expect it to last about a week. Okay. So towards mid-April, there's a good chance. I mean, no chance. We are pretty confident we will have Wisby stick back to stream. And by the 1st of May, we have promised the Oil and Gas Authority to issue a field development plan, a new updated field development plan for the Wisby site, which will involve an additional producer. The producer will be obtained by sidetracking one of the existing wells, so that's a significant cost change in relation to that. So it's a very low risk well. We expect a very, very, very high likelihood of success of drilling an economical well. And so this is all ongoing, and provided we get the necessary Lincolnshire Council approval, I expect the well might be even drilled within the year.
Okay. And obviously the COVID sort of delay has enabled you guys to look at costs as well. I mean, I think on a previous conversation with Rolf, was it just over $20 a barrel? You reckon your costs would be to extract?
Yes, we are definitely targeting, in our development plans, we make sure that, our CapEx, OpEx evaluation, also the corresponding plans, we are, well below $20 a barrel. Yes, and it's, I think it's not it's not a difficult target at all. So in the onshore world, and if you allow me to say another not too popular thing, the oil and gas UK is focused so much in the offshore because obviously it's been a large resource for the economy in the last few years. But when we talk about, for me, the oil barrel is to be as economical as it can possibly be. And of course, it's onshore where you have the lowest risk and the lowest cost. So small productions onshore, small production onshore has been neglected for quite a few years, and then for several years. So for me, it's essential that we understand that all these little reserves can be developed economically. And then guess what? Onshore is also much more environmentally friendly than the offshore. It's a much simpler operation. So so we think that there would be more opportunities for us. We understand our liabilities and the liability in this industry, I believe. So the key to unlock growth in this industry is the lifting cost and of course the abandonment cost as well. So it's a very hot subject at the moment with in the UK. The regulators are very clear on the matter. And, obviously we are working in that respect as well. So, yes, cost control and being on top of your lifting cost, the abandonment cost, it's adamant in this industry, and it's definitely the center of our strategy. So, producing economic oil. So, we want to make money with oil prices just above $20 a barrel.
Yeah, so that's what shareholders want to hear as well. Yeah, definitely. But all right, well, I think that's probably about 35, 40 minutes we've been talking. Pierpaolo, is there anything, Mark, you want to finish off with?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a good synopsis of your past there, Pierpaolo. As you say, over 20 years, if not 25 years of experience there. I'm sure you wouldn't be getting involved in this project unless you considered it to have significant potential. So I look forward to keeping tabs and hope this wax rework job goes well as you expect it to do, and get the wells on stream, and then looking for further exploration. So it'd be nice to follow the story. But thank you for your time on the podcast to tell us a bit about where you've come from and where you want to go.
Great. Next time I'll tell you about Newton, but it's a bit early now.
Okay.
That's even more.
Okay.
It's our next target. That's for next year.
Newton. Okay, yeah, the Newton on 10. Yeah.
The Newton field, Newton on Trent.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much, Pierpaolo. And
thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Pierpaolo. Thank you.
Take care, gentlemen. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Ben and Russell. Tune in next time.